Tamar was told, "Behold, your father-in-law goes up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So Tamar took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat by the entrance to Enayim, which is by the way of Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. This is brought down in Bereshit 38:13-14. Oftentimes we hear the saying, "It's not what it looks like." And in the story of Tamar, that's exactly what we find. Our sages tell us, always judge someone favorably. This is a classic example of just that saying. According to the Barbanel, there are many coincidences that lead to the union between Yehuda and Tamar, alluded to the fact that HaShem was at work behind the scenes. The Malbim explains that besides discerning that Shelah had grown, Tamar also realized that Yehuda's wife had died and that he was therefore free to fulfill the mitzvah of Yibum. The fact that he was going up to shear his sheep was a sign to Tamar that Yehuda had already been consoled. Tamar was sitting at Petach Enayim, which is the entrance of the eye, in order to meet Yehuda and convince him to marry her. Now this may appear to be a brazen move on Tamar's part, but the Sephora points out that she was doing this for the sake of Shemayim, as she understood that Mashiach was to be born from the union between herself and Yehuda. Now I've told you once before, always pay attention to the play on words, and in here it states, "He turned to her by the way and said, 'Come now, please let me come into you,' for he knew that she was not his daughter-in-law. Normally the Torah would have sent, 'He went to her,' but rather he turned to her." And the Dat Zikanim explains that Yehuda wanted to pass her by when Tamar lifted her eyes and prayed to Rabbono Shalom, "Don't I have the merit to bring forth a wise son from this Ta'ik?" And Hashem sent her the Malach Michael to turn him back. And this shows the power of Tamar's prayer, which literally created an angel that influenced the will of Yehuda. And the Midrash states that Yehuda wanted to pass on when Hashem sent the angel in charge of physical desire. And he said to Yehuda, "Where are you going? Where are kings standing? And from where do the great come forth?" He turned to her, by the way, against his will. Now 3 months go by, and then Yehuda is told, "Your daughter-in-law is a harlot." Can you imagine your father-in-law being told that you're this hussy? And by the way, she's carrying the seed of that illicit affair. And of course, Yehuda, bring her out now to be burned. And again, we see this quality of tznius. And we talked before about tznius not just being about how you're dressing, but how you're behaving. And in this case, the Torah points out, as it always does when it's speaking of a woman, her modesty. And in this case, Tamar did not try to defend herself. And in fact, she does it at the risk that she remained silent in order not to embarrass Yehuda. I mean, at any time she could have said, "Oh yeah, I'm the hussy? You were with me." And from this, the sages have learned what great lengths someone should go to in order not to embarrass someone. Now, hopefully, we'll never be put in this situation, Chas v'shalom. But Tamar was a very wise woman, and she understood that there were some things that need to be rectified before her sons could see the light of the world. After all, both her and Yehuda needed to prove that they can become parents of kings. And of course, this act of willing to sacrifice herself rather than causing embarrassment to a fellow Jew really was the catalyst for great things to come. Now, this is a very interesting thing, but Tamar understood that there were 2 tikkunim that had to be made here. Now, this is something I say all the time, that people really need to understand, that when you come to this world, it is to do your tikkun. If you don't do it, there's no purpose for you to be here. And in this case, this is what we're seeing. So if Tamar could demonstrate strength and willingness to lose everything, and Yehuda would be willing to undergo immense embarrassment by publicly admitting that he was wrong, his humiliation would then be transformed to everlasting honor. For this reason, Tamar took upon herself the difficult task of keeping up the whole truth to herself. She understood that the difference between complete destruction and total bliss depends on a hair's breadth. When Tamar learned that Yehudah went up to Timnah, the Torah states, "It was told to Tamar." The same language, "it was told to Yehudah," informed him that Tamar was pregnant. This alludes to the fact that the same Maggid, the heavenly reporter, was sent to test them both, as this was the opportunity for both of them to prove that they were worthy to become parents of Mashiach. And of course, when they passed the test, Yehudah proclaims, "Tzedika memeni," and usually this is translated as "she is more righteous than me." But memeni can also mean "from me." She is pregnant from me. Now, I said before that the sages teach us always judge someone favorably, and I said that Tamar's story is one of these cases where it's not what it looks like. And Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov explains that when HaShem was planting the first sprout of the kingdom of Israel, he ensured that it would be planted with no one's intention but his own. The king brought into being in this manner would remain unassuming because of his humble origin. And in fact, most of the circumstances surrounding bringing Mashiach to the surface stem from anything but holiness. From the incident of Lot's daughters and Tamar dressed up as a harlot, to Ruth and the Moabites, laying down on the threshing floor at Boaz's feet, the holier something is, the more obstacles prevent it from being carried out. The only way to circumvent the negative forces is through a disguise. And in this case, this is how HaShem used the disguise. It's just worthy to note that he colluded with a very wise woman. You can follow this series, A Woman's Worth by Devorah Esther, on YouTube at Gimel Dalet 777. Click subscribe to be notified. If you've enjoyed this video or know someone who would, please share it. Tzikku limitzvot.